Hello, everybody. Welcome back. This is going to be a revisit video to what I made a couple years back where I did a cemetery statue. In that video, I had a lot of volume issues where if I wasn't right next to the camera, you really couldn't hear what I was saying too well because I wasn't using any kind of microphones or anything. So you turn the volume up, and then when the music would kick in, the music was just obnoxious. So you had to turn it down real fast. And it was a very hard video to watch, very frustrating, not enjoyable to watch at all. I did get some feedback on that video. Not all of it was good, but I'm good with that because that tells me what I need to do to improve my videos to make it more enjoyable for you to watch. So I'm going to revisit this particular video. I'm going to be doing it a little bit different than I did the last time. Last time I started with one of those big foam blocks, and what I want to do with this video is I want to keep it kind of low key to the to where the materials I'm going to be using and the techniques I'm going to be using in this video is something that everybody can get a hold of or anybody can essentially do. I'm not going to be using any kind of special tools. I'm just going to be using basic tools, drills. Probably the most fanciest tool I'm going to be using is drills and skill saws. I'm not going to use any kind of miter saws, table saws, or anything like that. Just everything's going to be very basic, simple tools and all that kind of stuff. I'm also going to be making the base out of a 3/4 foam board instead of one of those big foam blocks. I know not everybody can get a hold of those big foam blocks, but I know everybody can get a hold of the foam board, from Lowe's or Home Depot. So I'm going to go that route with this right here. And the way I'm going to build it, I'm going to make it very easy to essentially create this project. Pretty much all I'm going to be using is some 3/4 foam board, some 2x4s, a 3-foot skeleton that I picked up from Lowe's. Now you can actually buy those things year round on Amazon or eBay kind of thing, so you don't have to wait till Halloween season in order to get a hold of one of those. You can order those year round. Some screws, some nails for holding things together, and my PL 300 caulking that I like to use for my project. So the game plan here is I'm going to be making the tower about 3 foot tall, and then I'll have the 3-foot skeleton at the top. It should be somewhere close to the ballpark, about 6 foot tall overall once everything's said and done. So let's go and get started.
All right, I'm starting off by cutting a piece of 1/2 inch PVC for my base. Now, this is just some extra material I had left over. You can use regular 1/2 inch plywood or 3/4 plywood would be perfectly fine for this. I'm making my base 18 by 18 overall because I wanted to have plenty of room for build out for my base. And here I'm cutting my 2x4s using a speed square for a nice square cut without using a miter saw. I'm going to have a total of 4 pieces at 12 inches and 4 pieces at 18 inches. The goal here when I'm done is I want to be able to have at least 12 inches by 12 inches inside after everything's screwed together because that's going to be the size of my tower. Right here, I'm just checking to make sure I got my 12, making sure I'm square. Once I know I'm square, I'll go ahead and screw my base to it. And all I'm using is just regular wood screws, nothing special for this, just a nice little coarse thread drywall screw. The next, I'm going to be working on the inner structure. This is kind of like the inner tower portion that you're not going to see. This is going to be cut to the same height that the foam will be cut to when I stick the foam on there. Right now, I'm drilling a hole in the top for my electrical conduit, which is going to be to hold the statue up. Now, I'm using a large drill bit, but you could use a paddle bit to create that same thing. I see I made it just a pinch too big. Little hammer. It'll go right in there. And here's going to be that electrical conduit that's going to add that backbone for the statue.
All right, to bring you up to speed on what I got going on here, this is going to be the main support for the whole thing. The reason why is because since I'm not using the big foam blocks, I'm just using 3/4 foam board. I want to make sure that when I get that statue on the top, that it's not going to overpower the foam itself. So what I did is I built this base. Like I was saying, it's 18 by 18. I made sure I had 12 by 12 inside because that's how wide my tower is going to be. I made this to fit in between here with some spacer blocks. It was a little snug, so I had to hammer it down in there. But hey, being more snug is always going to be better anyways. So what it is the tower is going to go around this right here. So you won't see this when it's all done. So I made this to where the tower is going to be 12 by 12. By the time you take off the 3/4 by 3/4, you're going to essentially have 10.5. So I made sure this is 10.5 in between here. So the foam is going to slide on this side of it. It's going to be inside here. It's going to go down in here. That's why I put these blocks right here, just so I can get the foam down inside there. And what that's going to do is that's going to allow me to glue the foam down inside here, which is going to give it a lot of support. When it comes up here, I'll put some caulking on the ends inside here. That'll lock it in place. And when I put a top piece on here and I glue it on, that's going to lock everything in place where it's going to make this whole thing nice and solid and rigid. The electrical conduit going from top to bottom is for the statue to be attached to. So essentially, when the statue is actually attached to it, what's going to do is that's going to make it to where there's no chance that that thing could topple over or fall just because because it's barely sitting in there. That's a lot of support for it, so I ain't got to worry about that. The reason I built this out so far is because I want to have plenty of room to do my little stair step that I want to do for the base, and then I'll also be doing a stair step at the top to kind of sort of mimic the bottom. So, but I'm going to go ahead and start cutting my foam board and start putting this together.
All right, I'm going to start cutting my foam board for my tower. I'll end up having two pieces of 12 inches, two pieces of 10 and a half. Since I'm not doing any kind of miter cuts and I'm going to have the material butt against each other, when you have two pieces of 3/4, that's going to be 1.5 inches. So that's where the two 10.5 ones come into play. I'm just going to use my normal PL300 I like to use for my projects. I just glue them together, put a couple of nails in them to hold everything in place while all the glue dries. Now, usually at this point, after I get my whole box built and I get it all nailed together, I'll usually caulk my inside just to make sure all my seams have a little more reinforcement. Right here, I'm measuring out for that notch that I need to put in there for that spacer that I was talking about a second ago. Put a nice little generous amount of caulking on the bottom here. And I'll just slide this piece over and lock it down inside. Now the top piece I'm going to be putting on here, I made sure was at least 1.5 inches overhang all the way around, because the lower sections I'll be putting up underneath there is going to be two pieces of 3/4 foam board. Now what I'm doing here for my stair step, I'm starting off with a piece 5 inches tall, and then I'll step it down to a piece that's 3 inches tall. That'll give me a nice little even stair step. And usually when I put my material on, I'll usually leave it a little long and I'll cut it off after I have it on there. It's better to cut it then than to potentially make it a little short and waste material. So now I'm putting on my 3-inch piece. I'm just running nails from the top into the that bottom piece right there. Just keep everything nice and even.
All right, so I made it to this point. The piece you saw me cutting right there was one of these little round styrofoam pieces. I picked this up from Joann Fabrics. It's just styrofoam, round. I'm just ripping it in half. The point in this is I want to give the top just a little bit more detail. So this is going to sit right up here just like this. One, it's going to dress up that top. Two, it's going to hide the seam from here, and it's just going to give that nice little detail. And I'll have to do a little 45 on there, but I'll show you the quick way to do a 45 on something like that if you're not using, like, say, a miter saw or a miter box or anything like that. So that's the next step. I'm going to put it on the ground so I can get to it easier. And I'm going to go ahead and get the other one split in half, and we'll put these on.
All right, so the best way to do this is just make lines from corner to corner and hold your material to the edge, and just essentially take your knife and hold your knife nice and straight with your line, and then just go down nice and evenly. And what that'll do is that'll give you the exact angle you need for that particular corner. Even if that piece is not perfectly square, doing it this way, you'll be able to line that corner up much nicer. And all I'm doing is I'm putting a little glue on each corner to help lock them in place, and around the entire perimeter. I'm just going to put the nails in there to lock everything in place. And it's always best to try to cut all 4 pieces before you start putting them together, just so you don't have to try to cut a 45 with the other material in the way. Now I'm going to go ahead and start putting my base pieces on. This is going to be the same principle. I'm going to leave them a little long and then cut the excess off. Now I'm going to do another little 45 on this one. It's another little trick. You just hold your material, make sure everything's nice and even, and go from the corner of the tower to the corner of your base and make 2 little lines, and then just cut between the 2 lines. That's a quick way to make a 45 right here without any kind of guesswork. And like I said, even if it's at a square, it'll still line up much better doing it this way than trying to, say, cut it with an actual 45-degree angle on there. Now I'm going to start working on my stair step at the bottom. Now this one's going to be a little different. This one's going to be 4 inches and 2 inches. The reason why this one's a little smaller is because I'm not going to be putting that little foam piece on it like you saw on the top. And now I'm just going to go ahead and get the next piece on. Here's my 2-inch piece. You see it's a little long. I'll be putting my nails in, then I'll cut the excess off. I said this just makes it to where you know you're going to be even. I'm going to caulk all my seams to make everything blend into each other.
All right, so I made it to this point right here. Now what I'm doing to try to keep this as simple as a project as possible, you notice I'm not doing any kind of 45s or anything outside of what you saw me do here. Everything is just straight cuts, just individual pieces. None of them have tapers on them or anything like that. You know, I'm not using the table saw to kind of generate any of that stuff or a miter saw for all the 45s. I'm keeping everything very square cut, straight cuts, simple, easy, nothing complex. So this way, it makes it into a very easy project for you to recreate. The next step is going to be to put the conduit in there and then mount the skeleton. Okay, I'm at this point right now. What my game plan is going to be, because of the way the skeleton shape with this right here, I want to make it easier for the pole. So I'm actually going to put the pole through here. I'm going to mark it. I'm going to pull the pole out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to flatten this spot with my hammer, flatten it down, so I can kind of make it so it fits on the front. Then when I zip tie it, this will be completely within the center of the statue. This way, no matter how I do the dress, I ain't got to worry about this kind of popping out in the back kind of thing. So go ahead and mark this. Oh. All right, now what I did here is I can use just a zip tie, but I kind of want it to be a little more secure than a zip tie. So you see where I put a couple holes in the metal right there. I'm just going to run a couple of screws right through the plastic of the skeleton. Let me get them. Oh, stay put. Right where the feet are down where they're supposed to be. Now, if I would have left my conduit a little longer, you know, say I had it come all the way up here, I probably would just do some zip ties at that point. But since I kind of cut myself a little short there on the height of that, I feel the screws are going to be better for this part than a couple zip ties would be. All right, so now I got it in place. To try to keep this as simple as possible, because you know, these arms don't have anything that really holds them. They're just very flimsy. For me to, like, say, make them where they're really posable or something like that, you got to get in here and you either got to replace the conduit with, say, a PVC pipe, run a PVC pipe up, put some L's on there, run them out, which would work, which is good for like a 5 foot skeleton because you have a lot more material. But when you start using small stuff like this and you start trying to get PVC, unless you use half-inch PVC, it's going to be hard to really hide that, especially under something small like this. Other way you can do it is use like a heavy-duty baling wire, but then you got to find a way to, you got to get it in there and you got to twist it to get everything posed and stuff like that. So I want to make this just a very simple kind of project. So essentially what I'm going to end up doing is, you said I just took and just bent these fingers down. You know, I didn't really add any heat to them. I just bent them. If they would have broke, you know, I just glued them back together with a hot glue gun or something. I'm just going to have it come down here. I'm just going to have the hands just kind of hold themselves down here and drape all the material. And I'm going to have the material kind of drape sort of over each side a little bit, just to kind of make it so you see just a little bit of the fingers, but a lot of this part's going to be covered. Now, what I'll be doing is I'm going to be doing the dressing in 3 pieces. One piece on the front first, so I can drape it over the head, bring it over, have like a little small V cut here, bring it down to the feet, kind of tuck it around and all that. Then after that, then I'll take and put these and just put a zip tie just to hold them together. Then I'm going to drape the other one where I'm going to bring it over. I'm going to wrap it around the arms and let it come down. And then I'm going to take a little piece of cardboard. I'm going to glue a piece of cardboard up here. So when I put the top piece on, that cardboard is going to keep that top piece from wanting to sag until everything's dry. And then I'm just going to drape that down. So I'm going to go ahead and start cutting my material and get it ready for to dress it. All right, at this point right here, you would be getting ready to mix your monster mud, which is kind of just a remedy of latex house paint and drywall mud or joint compound. Sometimes some people add extra stuff like dry lock to it or something like that to give it like the stone kind of feel to it. But your basic classic monster mud is latex paint and drywall mud. I won't be mixing any of that for this video because I'm going a different direction with this one. I'm going a little more modern, I guess you could say. What I want to do is I want to do something a little different than I normally do. I want to make my tower, my pedestal, black, almost like a black granite, with a white thing in the center, like an oval kind of thing in the middle. And then I want the statue to be kind of a marble, like a white marble kind of look. So I want everything to be smooth. I don't want any texture to it. So I'm not gonna be doing any kind of monster mud or anything like that. I'm literally just gonna dunk my fabric into just a bucket of white latex house paint, soak it really, really good, and drape it over it. Now, it's not going to get as rigid as it would if you had the actual full monster mud. So, and I know that's going to be a compromise, but once it dries, it's going to retain that shape anyway, so it'll be perfectly fine. All right, so this part right here is actually very messy. So if you're worried about getting any kind of like paint on your shop floor or your driveway or wherever you plan on doing it, definitely protect the work area, or maybe go out or go out and do it somewhere out in the yard, out in the grass somewhere. And what I usually do with my first piece, see how it's just going to go over top like this. I'm going to try to keep a little section right here dry. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hot glue gun. I'm going to put some hot glue back here. So when I put it on there, what I'll do is the hot glue will kind of hold this one in place, so it doesn't want to keep sliding on me or anything like that while I'm working with it. So I'm going to try to keep one little spot dry and then drape it over. So let's go ahead and... Trick here is to get the fabric completely coated all the way through. And normally a lot of times people use gray for this, but since I'm going with a white marble look for my statue, I'm going to use white latex paint. That'll save me a lot of extra painting, you know, from going from gray to white and all that. I mean, I'm still going to have to put more paint on it. I mean, I know just this right here is not going to be enough to, you know, do the entire thing, you know, but it'll definitely reduce the amount that I'll have to do after the fact.
All right, so that's where I'm going to put the glue on the back side. Like I said, all that is just to make sure that the front piece doesn't want to slide down while I'm doing the rest of it. It's more or less just a temporary hold. Obviously, once I get the other piece on there and everything starts to dry, it's not going to move after that. And all I did for the top is I just cut a little bit of a V cut in there, just enough to get it over top of the skull and let it drape down, but not make it to where it's so big that you see the entire rib cage, just a little bit on the top, that's all. Now I'm going to drape over the second piece, and this I'm going to tuck it between the arms and the body. Now what I did with this portion of the sheet is I made sure I cut the side that had the sewn hem portion of it. So when it actually comes down in the front, you actually see that area where it's nice and sewn, so it actually looks like an actual piece of clothing that they would have already been on there, not any kind of jagged edges. It just makes it look nicer up close. Now I'm going to put that piece of cardboard on top here I was talking about. This is a good way just to make sure that your piece doesn't kind of fold down in the center on you while you're waiting for it to dry, and you don't have to hold it or fight it or anything like that. It'll kind of hold it for you. If you're using much larger material, you might want to use a little bit larger piece of cardboard, something with a little more rigidity to it, just to make sure that it stays like you want it to. Doing a little bit of extra painting on the face to finish everything off.
All right, now I'm going to go ahead and stick it out in the sun and let it dry for a while. I'm not worried about it dripping like it is, because once I get it out there in the sun, this latex paint's going to dry super quick. So I'm going to let it sit out there and dry for a little bit, and then we will continue moving forward.
A little bit of dry time in the sun.
While that's drying outside, I'm going to go ahead and start working on the oval piece that's going to be on the main tower portion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be cutting this skull in half. I'm just, just right behind the jaw. Just going to cut it nice and flat. I'm going to do an oval here, and then this is going to be inside the oval, and then I'll have a back piece, and then I'll paint that white to match the statue, and then I'll do the same thing with that one. It's a statue where it's going to have like a little bit of a marble look to it. So I'm going to get working on that. Okay, so I'm getting ready to draw the oval. Now, I've never actually drawn an oval before because I never really had a reason to draw an oval. So I actually watched a video of a guy that shows a really quick hack to essentially creating the perfect oval. He started off by drawing a line across his material, and then he about somewhere midway of his material, he just put a framing square on it like this, and then drew a line this way, which is what I did here. And then he said you got to figure out how big your oval wants to be. So I decided mine's going to be 9 by 13. So then what he did is he took his ruler, and from here over, half a 9 is going to be 4.5. So he made a mark at 4.5 on that, and my 13 is going to be 6.5. So I did put 6.5 right on that line. Find your line here, draw a line there, and then same thing. Go over here, find where it meets your line again, and draw a thing. So then you have your line right there. And now you only need these 3 points. And then what he did, he put a screw in there. Well, he was actually using nails, but I have screws, so we're gonna use screws for this. And he just did that right there. And then he took a piece of string. And went around these points here. Now he said you don't have to make this tight, but you definitely want to make it snug enough to where you're not going to get too much flex, or your oval might not be the exact size you want it to be. Let's get these tight. Hopefully, come on, cooperate with me. All right, so about as tight as I'm going to get it around these holes. Then he took this one out, and he just took his pencil and just essentially went around like that. Perfect oval. And that guy's going to sit right in the middle there. Now I'm going to have to use my protractor because I want this to only have about a 1/2 inch lip. So I'll set this, and I'm going to subscribe all the way around. So this way I actually have a 1/2 inch around it, and then there's going to be a backer to it. But I just wanted to be able to draw a perfect looking oval to make it look good. And you just saw that's a perfect way to make an oval.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and scribe that line all the way around at about a 1/2 inch. Then I'll take a drill bit, I'll drill a hole in the middle. So I could use my jigsaw to cut the inner ring out first. Then after I cut the whole thing out, I staple just a thin piece of wood to the backside, get the skull glued on, get it painted.
All right, so I'm at this point right here. I got the base painted black. I'm going to let that fully dry. I'm going to put one more coat of white on her, one so I can feather everything back in like it's supposed to, and also kind of cover where I put a caulking in here to fill in the chest area. And then after I do that, I'll start the doing like the marble look, and then I will get the last little bit finished up. All right, well, it's the next day. Next step is to do kind of like the marble portion. Now, I have a paint shop next to where I work, and there's a guy in there that's extremely knowledgeable when it comes to doing paint work. And I asked him, what's a good technique to try to create like that marble look where you kind of get the grace and all that stuff in there? And he did a little demonstration, kind of showed me how to do it. I guarantee his is going to look way better than mine, but we're going to go for this anyways. He said start off with a feather if you have one, which I don't have one. So just take a little piece of cardboard, tear it, so this way it's kind of a little bit of a jagged edge and all that. And then he said just dunk it in your paint, whatever you're going to use. Don't have a whole lot on there because you don't want to make a mess on it. And then just kind of go at like this angle kind of thing like this, and kind of create like your line. And he said just give it a minute to kind of set just a little bit. And with my shop being kind of hot, probably not going to take that long. And he said just take a brush, and you want to get rid of the hard defined lines. And he said just literally just go over it real lightly, and just kind of take out those hard lines that the cardboard leaves. He said just do that. He said obviously don't let it dry all the way, because if you let it dry too much, then you're not going to be able to work with it. And then just kind of do that, and then just make as many lines you want. And he said if you're not super happy with it, you can always come back with the white and dry brush it and kind of feather the stuff out like you want to. And then at that point, you'll be ready to finish it up. So get her done.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and make my lines on both the statue and that front oval piece. After I do that, then I will do the dry brushing. But at this point, I realized that the gray was just a little too dark for me. So once I did all this right here, I went back. You see I got some white there. I'm just dry brushing some white over the entire thing just to kind of feather them back out just a little bit.
All right, so I got it all done. Now I wanted to keep this one as simple and as basic as I possibly could. That's why I wasn't using any kind of specialized tools, any kind of fancy tools. And that's why I also used all materials that you could pick up from any kind of box store. I wanted to keep this one super low tech, just to make sure that you can get a hold of the materials. The whole point in this video was, I'm sure there's some people out there, first time DIYers, that would love to build something like this for their cemetery display, but is a little intimidated of the process and what to do and how to do it, and maybe think that they don't have the resources or the tools or anything like that to essentially take on a project like this. So I wanted to show what you can do with just some basic everyday tools, nothing fancy, and just a little bit of time, something like that you could generate over the course of just a weekend. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. I hope you all got some really good information from it. If you did enjoy this video, hit that like button for me. Leave me a comment, tell me what you think. And I want to add one last little thing to this video. I have a second one. Now I almost have like a his and hers. Now, for anybody that might have caught that upload before I had to delete it, I ended up deleting the upload because something happened with the audio again, just like my very first video I did. So I deleted it. When I went back into my file so I can try to fix the audio, I couldn't find my file no more. I don't know if somehow I accidentally deleted it, what happened. All I know is I lost that file and I lost all the material. So I was not able to regenerate that particular video to re-upload it. So that's why that video disappeared, if you happen to be one of the few that happened to catch it before I deleted it. But so I decided I'm going to make a second one for you guys. Gave me something to do. I had a lot of fun making the second one. So in the end, I hope y'all enjoyed the process of this one. And I hope y'all like the look of this one right here. I went a little different, kind of a little more of a weeping, statue sitting down. The process was all the same as far as the way I built the whole structure here, the pipe and the whole 9 yards. The only difference is I put this in a sitting position and I did that one in a standing position. But the construction of the two were identical. So, I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.